Hey students, so today I have an awesome topic we all love to talk about, and it is denying self. So if you could turn to the book of Luke chapter 9 verses 23 with me. All right, we're going to be in verses 23 through 25. And it says here, and he said to all, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever will lose his life for my sake will save it. For what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses or forfeits himself? Man, these verses here are definitely not hard verses to understand, but probably the hardest verses in the Bible to live out. Because he's calling us to do something daily. This is different than making that one-time decision. This is different than just putting something away. This is daily denying self. What's that mean, to deny self? So when I think about that, I think it's actually contrary to what the world is telling us. The world tells us to be self-centered. The world tells us that we cannot love ourselves, or we cannot love others until we learn to love ourselves, right? I've seen those like quotes going through social media. Far from the truth, and in reality, we cannot love others until we learn to love Jesus, because Jesus is love. But also, it calls us, when it's talking about death here, it's talking about my fleshly desires. This is contrary to what my fleshly desires want, because I want to be happy. I want to be in a good mood. I want to have a lot of things. I want to, whatever it is, like I think about me, my possessions, what makes me satisfied. And Jesus is telling his disciples, that's not, you're going to have to give that up if you're going to want to follow him. And then he says to take up his cross, so to die to self, right? The cross is a symbol of death, and follow him daily. And it says in verse 24, for whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. So I think about the disciples, and they were pulled out of the occupations they had. Peter, James, and John, these fishermen, no doubt they were very successful fishermen. The Sea of Galilee that they were in was, like, I believe, the only freshwater source that would feed that whole region. So if they would have continued, they probably would have had fleets of boats and been very successful. We look at Matthew, who was the tax collector, very smart guy. Probably could have continued on the side of doing it and continued to make good money. But as we see, Jesus had called his disciples out and said, hey, drop it all, follow me, right? So that is an example that we ought to see here as Jesus tells his disciple, you cannot have these desires of self and follow Jesus at the same time. All right, this is a daily effort that we must put in. And it says in verse 25, for what would it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses or forfeits himself? I think of none other than Solomon right here, when we're looking at Ecclesiastes, and the man who had it all, right? And we're talking about the wisest man ever, besides Jesus, to ever walk the earth. Super smart. He had whatever. He had the money. He had gold. He had hundreds of wives. He had hundreds of horses and stable and pool, and you name it, Solomon had it. And he told us it's all vanity, as if it was like a bubble that bursts just into nothing. You can have it all. It does not satisfy you. It's all temporary. It will come and go. It will come to pass. It is not eternal. And so we have a decision to make here. We can learn, as Jesus was teaching his disciples at this very moment, that if they wanted to follow him, that every single day they had an option. It says, if anyone would come after me. So, students, have you denied yourself today? Have you picked up your cross today? Have you loved Jesus? Have you loved others through Jesus today. I encourage you, if you haven't, it is not too late. I think about Pastor David as well when I read through this passage about him slaying dragons. He mentioned before that he would wake up and he'd pray and read his Bible, and he'd call it slaying his dragons before he'd start his day. So I encourage you, slay your dragons, get in the Word, deny yourself, okay? What does that look like for you? I don't know. Maybe it's maybe you're seeing things through social media you shouldn't be seeing. Maybe you're on your phone looking at different things that you should not be looking at. Maybe you're in a relationship that you know is not right and it's not pleasing to the Lord. Maybe you haven't loved on other people the way that Jesus has called us to love on to people. I encourage you, as this is a very much encouragement to me, that every single day I have an option and I want to further the kingdom of God. I want to give God the praise and the glory for this. I pray that you all would also get something from this and slay your dragons. Don't wait. It is not too late. I love y'all.